For many of you, you may not have even noticed, but Canada is slowly becoming a battleground for a Cold War over the past few years. And like blood in the water, the sharks are beginning to circle.
When we moved to Canada, we thought that we are safe.
We have some new information developments on that suspected Chinese spy balloon.
Explanation of how I came to mention the possibility of 2 specific foreign interference cases, and 4, the extent to which anyone outside the service was aware of foreign interference in general and the 2 cases specifically.
Laws only work within the confines of a border. In the international arena, countries must defend themselves and their people. It seems like over the past few years, enemies of the Great White North have multiplied. Now, I wouldn't sit here and say Canada has never had enemies. That would be a lie. But for some reason, we seem to have the crazy ability to pick fights with the biggest and baddest in the world. Most likely because of our proximity to the USA. Even then, this might not be a problem if we had a leader that could hold his own. But worse than that, these enemies are marching up to our front door, kicking it in, entering our homes, and doing whatever they damn well please. Welcome to the Canadian-Iran Cold War. This is Hamed Esmaeilion, and according to an interview he did with the New Reality, he has to watch his back wherever he goes, unable to escape the oppressive and violent regime that rules his homeland of Iran, even when he's supposed to be safe in Canada. Hamed's wife and daughter were among 176 people killed, including 55 Canadian citizens, when the Islamic Revolutionary Guard shot down Ukrainian International Airline Flight 752 on Jan 8, 2020. He thought he was safe in Canada, that he could voice his opinion on social media. But that put a target on his back immediately, and soon, threats began. First on social media, and then the calls started.
Your public's agents are everywhere in this country. Everywhere. If you're on the air in a plane, or if you're on the ground. The dictatorship regimes, they can endanger your life.
But it gets worse. Hamed went to the police. They couldn't help him. He was told police resources are stretched too thin to protect him. I guess we weren't dealing with India at the time, but let's throw them into the mix while we're here. According to the New Reality, who said they heard from Iranian Canadians, legal experts, and security and intelligence sources who say Canada has an especially big problem with hundreds, maybe thousands.
How many Islamic Republic officials are enjoying freedom in Canada? You will be shocked.
Of potentially dangerous regime-connected officials here on Canadian soil. And you're thinking, well, these are probably unknown people working under the regime to spy or sneaking in somehow. You're wrong, because we have Iranian government, known Iranian government officials on Canadian soil entering normally, despite us having a full-on law that bars Iranian officials from coming to Canada in the first place. They aren't being flagged by the IRCC or the CBSA and are even given visas, full legal rights to come into Canada as they please. This is Hamed Esmaeilion. He's an alleged senior member of the Iranian regime who has shown up in Canada and faces possible deportation. Now, Hamed Esmaeilion was a Director General at the Vice Presidency for Science and Technology, according to the Iranian government's website. He even said himself how he had wasted 8 months waiting for his hearing with the IRB, and asked why he had not simply been told upon arrival in Canada that he was inadmissible in the first place. A very good question. But it gets juicier because Iran's former Deputy Interior Minister, Saeed Salman Samani, also appeared before the refugee board in Toronto. What are all these banned officials doing here? The IRCC and the CBSA actually couldn't say how they were able to get in. They didn't know. Now this is Masih Alinjad. In 2021, the FBI thwarted an attempted kidnapping plot against her.
FBI told me that as far as you are in America, we will protect you. But we suggest you not to go to Canada. It won't be safe for you. That's heartbreaking. Canada should be safe.
And the following year, an alleged assassination attempt. Since the alleged assassination plot was thwarted, Alinjad has been under police protection, moving from safe house to safe house in New York City. She's in danger, but she's protected. And get this, there was even an Iranian state TV anchor who referred to one of the first cases of someone linked to the Iranian regime hanging out in Canada. Mahmoud Kavari is his name. And despite all this, he reportedly became a Canadian citizen. And according to reports on social media, Kavari and his son set up a successful restaurant chain in Toronto, even garnering positive coverage in the process. You might have gone to this place for all we know. I might have gone to this place for all I know. And there are others like him with citizenship. So, how did we get here? Have things always been like this? Well, kind of. But it's complicated. Formal relations between the two nations began in 1955, and for the most part, things were pretty good. Foreign relations and diplomatic ties between Canada and Iran took off with the founding of an Iranian mission in Ottawa in 56 and a Canadian mission in Tehran in 59. The Canadian mission was granted embassy status in 61. Friends would be pushing things, but things were pretty good. And then 1979 came.
And still see his monarchy surviving. The Ayatollahs are committed to the ouster of the Shah and nothing less than that. They chant, Nakba Shah, death to the Shah.
The Shah and his empress left shortly before midday. The empire he had hoped to build had been shattered by a year of violence.
The news spread with the speed of the human shout. Shah Farari Shodeh, the people cried. The Shah has escaped. The old chant of death to the Shah was replaced today by a new one, death to Carter.
And the Iranian Revolution happened. Things turned upside down quickly, and the Shah, aka the King, was forced to flee the country. The Canadian embassy scrambled to evacuate the 850 Canadian workers in Iran. 6 American diplomats took refuge in the Canadian embassy after Iranian student protesters stormed the U.S. embassy. And the Canadian government, in coordination with the Central Intelligence Agency, took up a covert rescue that became known as the Canadian Caper, and safely evacuated them from the country using Canadian passports with forged Iranian visas. The movie Argo, among other TV shows and documentaries, are based off this event, though Argo's adaptation is probably the most well-known, heavily downplays the Canadian involvement. Nonetheless, this joint rescue improved Canada's relation with the United States greatly, but the Canadian-Iran relations soured. This led to fears of retribution against Canadians, and the embassy was shut down in 1980. It wasn't until 8 years later, in 88, that the two governments agreed to resume diplomatic relations, but at a low level. The Canadian embassy in Tehran reopened, but Iran still wasn't fully ready to forgive and forget, so Iran did not establish any embassy in Canada until 91. So it looks like things were going pretty well for the time being, as well as they could. But we've been here before. 1996 rolls around. Canada's concern over human rights abuses in Iran, its record on nuclear non-proliferation, Holocaust denial, and threats to destroy Israel, and its active opposition to the Middle East peace process led to a policy of controlled engagement by Canadians. Meaning, relations were restricted, no direct air link between the two countries, and no to the opening of Iran consulates and the cultural center in Canada, other than the embassy in Ottawa that was already there. Don't worry though, it gets so much worse. 03 rolls around. Her name, Zara Kazemi, an Iranian-Canadian freelance photographer from Mariyat. She was arrested while taking photos outside a prison in Tehran during a student protest. 3 weeks later, she mysteriously dies in custody. Now, Iran authorities insisted that her death was accidental, claiming that she died of a stroke while being interrogated. Not that anyone in Canada, let alone the world, was buying that to begin with, but there was another problem with that story. Shahram Azam, who, upon seeking asylum in Canada, stated that he was a former military staff physician. He examined Zara's body and observed obvious signs of torture, including a skull fracture, a broken nose, signs of grape, not the word, and severe abdominal bruising. As you can imagine, this only stirred up positive issues between the two countries. This caused Canada to draft a United Nations resolution to condemn human rights abuses in Iran. But Iran obviously wasn't going to take that lying down. In response, and to shift the focus, the Iranian judiciary spokesman claimed the Canadian government has the worst, most backwards and racist judiciary system. They then went on to accuse a Canadian police officer of gunning down 18-year-old Iranian boy in Vancouver. Now, this was a whole other issue and event in which the police officer claimed self-defense after the teenager allegedly charged at him with a machete. Either way, it was ammo for the Iranian regime. Iran presented a 70-page report before the adoption of the resolution detailing alleged human rights abuses in Canada. 70 pages in an attempt to discredit the main backers of the resolution. It didn't work. Canada fired back in 2005 and cut any reason to talk to Iran in the first place. They tightened their controlled agreement policy, limiting talks with Iran to 4 subjects. Basically, how much power do you have and how can we take it away? The real list goes as follows. The human rights situation in Iran, Iran's nuclear program and its compliance with the non-proliferation obligations, the case of Zahra Kazemi, Iran's role in the region. But it doesn't stop there, I know. 2006, the conservative-dominated parliament in Iran accused the Canadian embassy of being a den of spies for the United States and launched an investigation. So as you can see, it was a dumpster fire relationship with fuel from both sides, more toxic than Amber Heard and Johnny Depp. But in 2007, a silver lining. A surprise move to cool relations between the two countries came from Iran, calling for another review of the death of Zahra and an attempt to again exchange ambassadors. Fantastic. Except it wasn't. Canada rejected 2 Iranian candidates because Canadian intelligence suggested they had been involved with the radical student uprising that stormed the US embassy in '79. So no way they were getting in. This prompted Iran to do what you think they did and refused to even review the credentials of the Canadian candidate, John Moody. And that which Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister, Maxime Bernier, current leader of the PPC party, claimed was retaliation for Ottawa's rejection of Iran's top choices. And just to top it off, a prominent Canadian-Iranian blogger, Hussein Jarakshan, was detained by police in Tehran in 2008 over remarks he made about the Shia faith. Well, that's at least according to the Iranian judiciary system anyways. And finally, what seems like a long time coming, 2012, Canada formally listed the Iranian regime as a state sponsor of terrorism under the Justice for Victims of Terrorism Act, putting a real stake in the relationship. Prime Minister Stephen Harper was even quoted as saying that the Iranian government is unambiguously a clear and present danger, and that the appeal of our conscience requires us to speak out against what the Iranian regime stands for. After Canada's announcement of closure, a note written in Persian was posted on the door of Iran's embassy in Ottawa. The note said, because of the hostile decision by the Canadian government, the embassy of the Islamic Republic of Iran in Ottawa is closed. So now at this time, Italy agrees to serve as Canada's protecting power in Iran, and Oman agreed to serve Iran's interests in Canada at its embassy in Ottawa. Happy ending. Except we know it doesn't end there. Justin Trudeau takes office in 2015. Within the first month of October 2015, he had planned to restore relations between the two nations. Following the implementation of the Iran nuclear deal, Canada's trade minister at the time, Chrystia Freeland, announced that they would be lifting economic sanctions against Iran, which will allow Canadian companies to do business with Iran. Limitations apply. And so this brings us to today.
So raise your right hand and so join in.
A record number of new permanent residents were added to Canada's population last year, 431,645.
Canada takes in a lot of Iranians. These Iranians are looking to get away from the fighting for their rights at the end of a barrel. They're tired of worrying about their children saying or doing the wrong thing at the wrong time, the wrong place, and getting killed for it. So when Canada promises a safe place for these people, or by extension, any people, it's Canada's right to protect them. Otherwise, don't invite them in the first place. The USA says we can't protect them. Heck, our own RCMP say we don't have the resources to protect them. The CBSA and IRCC can't tell us why Iranian banned officials are getting legal access to enter the country.
It's come to this. These people wandering around Toronto's Pearson Airport got a tip about a passenger on an incoming flight. Someone from Iran, reportedly someone close to the murderous regime. Someone may be hoping to slip in unnoticed.
Why are you coming here?
Not a chance.
You are working for the Iranian regime. What are you doing in Canada?
Multiple phones aimed at the person, and this arrival is suddenly a public shaming exercise.
And so on and so on. The Islamic Republic of Iran blinded hundreds of Iranians. Now, survivors are using their injuries to draw attention to the country's oppression. We just can't be laissez-faire about this nation. I said in the beginning, laws only work within the confines of a border. In the international arena, countries must defend themselves and their people. But even within our own borders, our laws go unenforced. I'd like you to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll leave you with this video of a man at the very least is promising change. Hopefully he can deliver it, because we are in desperate need of it. Thanks for watching, and come back for more.
Ladies and gentlemen, the time has come. The time has come for all of us friends of freedom to gather around, because the time has gone for too long. Too long. We have allowed the tyrants in Tehran to terrorize the people, to steal their rights, to engage in extrajudicial arrests and disappearances, to crush protests of courageous young people, and to target women and take away their rights. The time has come. The time has come for Canadians and for people of all the world who stand for freedom against tyranny to rally to free Iran and to pursue a new democratic government in that country.